Welcome to the Heather Penny Podcast, where our goal is to help you reach your potential by increasing clarity, building confidence, and engaging courage. Dr. Heather Penny is a leadership coach, trusted advisor, and admired author. I'm Christina Morales, a writer and marketer, and Heather is my dear friend and my coach. So today we're continuing with our series called Grace Space. Be sure to go back and check out our past episodes to learn how to demonstrate grace in every circumstance. Today we're on part 7, which is the last part of our series, and we're going to discuss trust versus fear. So basically, Heather, when I was thinking about this, you know when the water doesn't drain right and you twist off the stopper and you pull out the big blob of hair and gooey gunk? Like that's how I feel right now because it's hard and it's yucky and it needs to be gone, but you don't want to do that. And so that's what the trust is and the fear. And so having you coach me means that I have to trust you. That's hard. Yes. Do you have a lot of people who have a hard time building the trust? We all have masks on, and it can be pretty hard to take them off. So how do people start trusting you even as a coach?
Yeah, the whole idea of trust really is a choice. Do I want to grow in it? Do I want to kind of live out of fear? So it is a choice I give people, and I tell them it's a choice, and more importantly, it's a choice that I will respect. So, and then one of the things that I always want to tell people is trust is not a switch that you turn on and off.
Yeah.
And I think if you think that way, it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on yourself to like, I'm going to either trust them yes, or I'm not going to trust them no. You're just constantly getting jerked back and forth between that. And as we know, all of our human relationships are so much more complex than that. So if you can think of trust as more as a continuum, and I think I mentioned this in the last podcast of the freedom and control, but it's this idea that you get to move people up in your trust level. You have to just learn how to evaluate, is my trust growing or is my trust shrinking? And I think that what we do that damages our trust is that when we keep telling ourselves, oh yeah, this person was at a 3 in the trust and they completely either lied about me or treated me poorly or falsely accused me or diminished me. And then we push through it and say, it must be my fault. I'm going to keep moving them up the trust level. That's where we begin to get more and more trouble with ourselves and our relationships because we miss the signs that this person is not trustworthy. And we do damage to ourselves, and we really don't do any favors in the relationship. The kindest thing we can do is just say, wait a minute, I got to stop here because the trust level here is a little vulnerable and it feels jeopardized because of these 3 things that you did, and I need to check them with you. If it's a healthy relationship, they will swing the door wide open and say, I'm so sorry, I did not mean to jeopardize our trust. If it's unhealthy relationship, they're saying, I don't really care that I jeopardized your trust. I have the right to treat you that way. That helps you understand where you're at in your trust level with yourself and with the other person.
I appreciate that you say that because it seems like when we're kids, we all did the exercise, the team building exercise where you just fall back, you close your eyes, put your arms across your and just fall back. And I hated that because I could never do that. But now thinking back to that, they make it sound like you need to trust everybody. You know, you should be able to trust, and that's not the case. We don't have to just go in full force and just fall back. We can take little baby steps and decide who's safe or not. And that's okay. And that's what we should be teaching our kids. And that's what we should be accepting of ourselves, is not everybody is safe. And we don't have to trust everybody.
So well said. I'm glad you brought up that example because they were pushing you to be at a level 10.
Yeah.
You never got to explore 0 through 9. And what if you grew up in a home where your trust level was jeopardized on a conscious level? That's a traumatizing exercise to do to somebody. I remember that too. And I remember I struggled with that. And I go, okay, I know the right answer is to say, yes, I'll fall back. But it's miserable. And instead of saying, hey, I want to explore, is this person trustworthy? Or I want to be given the permission to not fall back, but at least to fall forward so I can watch them. I mean, there's so many other options besides you have to do it at this level. And this is a level 10. And we don't care if you didn't explore 0 through 9. It's kind of a traumatizing exercise.
Totally. And so it's interesting because we've talked about a variety of issues in grace space. And then I was really thinking about, like, we were talking about positive words and negative words and how it doesn't have to be either or. But it seems like the negative words, or the words that we associate with being negative, are from fear. We react, we are defensive, we protect, we control, because we're afraid of getting hurt. It's putting walls up. So
Right.
am I right in thinking this? Like, that's the basis of why we have these different levels and different pools of grace space.
Yeah, so well said. And I think that, again, this kind of goes, it reminds me of our connection and protection conversation we had. We can be about trust building, or we can be about fear building. We can be about connection, or we can be about protection. And I always want to say there's neither any right or wrong on that. You just want to make sure that you're monitoring your choice. And that's what I always try and empower people, saying you actually get to choose. If you really want to get good at trusting, you can. If you want to get good at fearing the world, you can. You can get good at where you want to get good at. So this idea of grace space is just giving people the permission to focus on what they want to focus on and cultivate what they want to cultivate, not be a victim of maybe their stories in their life, or past traumas, or past misunderstandings, or pain, or hurt, or even what the world might be throwing at them. We don't have to just receive whatever messages are coming at us. We get to stop and evaluate that and say, actually, I want to be a person that's about trust building. And I think once I made that conscious choice, that's me participating in grace space, and that's me bringing my grace with me. So if someone wants to, whether it's in a client relationship, or in a friendship, or in my family, or my parenting, or a social relationship, it doesn't matter. I am always going to be about trust building. So anyone who's trying to sabotage my trust, whether they're doing it consciously or subconsciously, I don't really focus so much on that. I just focus on, wow, my trust keeps getting jeopardized. My trust keeps going down. My trust doesn't feel good. I don't feel like I'm able to trust this person with every conversation that I have. It's not building, it's actually diminishing. That should be a really big flag for me, that I'm not participating in a conversation or a relationship where they have the commitment to at least build trust.
And we talked about grace, putting the other person first, and the opposite of grace is shame. So it seems like our fear is based on, maybe we've been shamed. We've just been facing that part, and we weren't shown enough grace. And so we can help others around us not be afraid by showing that grace, which is so poignant right now.
Isn't it? Yeah. And because if the shame message has been loud, or is still loud in your life, what are you going to get good at? You're going to get good at shame messaging. And I think it's easy to drift into that. I think if we can be good at grace messaging, which is about building trust, not about building fear. And, taking you and I, for example, as you step into conversations with me, you get to start trusting that whatever we talk about or bring up gets to be a trust building exercise. And so the fear gets to be more and more pushed away, so that we get to cultivate between just us a sense of, let's build trust together. Let's not focus on how we're going to either build the fear or manage the fear. And not that that's not important. Fear has a valued place in our world and in our life, to recognize it, to cope with it, to manage it. But grace gets to be about the antithesis of maybe what's being thrown at us. And if the antithesis is that really more of this idea of shame, let's be about what brings grace. And so as I look at this idea of a shame-based message, I would say that a lot of that's about fear. Fear of offending, fear of disappointing, fear of not getting it right, fear of failing. I mean, I can keep going down the list. What if our conversations and our relationships got to really be about fostering a sense of trust, trusting ourselves, trusting each other, trusting our messages, trusting our words, trusting that we get to check things, trusting that we get to understand each other. You can see how that whole idea can shift a conversation, a relationship, a belief, and even bring it to a higher level. And that's what I always want to be about. And that's just the heartbeat of our grace space together.
And as we're concluding on this series too, there's something interesting that's happened to me personally that I didn't expect. So while I'm trying to change, I'm getting healthy, I'm moving forward, trying to leave the past behind, the people who I'm struggling with aren't in that same space. So while I'm starting to find my voice and I'm thinking I'm going to respond, not react, I'm going to be receptive, not defensive, they're wondering why I'm finally standing up for myself and not just accepting the status quo. And so, I mean, we talked about how a word isn't all good and all bad. In a way, I do want them to fear that now I'm going to stand up. They just can't spew stuff. Now I can stand up for myself. So now they need to be a little more, I don't want to say fear or afraid, but now they need to know that I'm going to stand up for myself. So have you seen this with other clients where they're changing, but the people around them, they're still in the same place? I've moved forward and I'm standing up for myself, and the people I'm dealing with are still in their funk.
Yeah. You know, first I want to address the word fear, because I always love your intent, and I'm always going to help you with your words, your language. And I go, you know what? You're not trying to create fear. What you're trying to do is create a respectful response.
Yeah.
You want to respect them and you want to be respected. So even in your attempt to kind of move through these relationships, you're trying to create a new standard of, listen, I want to respect you, but I also want to be respected. And it doesn't feel dualistic. It doesn't feel synergistic. It doesn't feel fair. And I think what you have to do is recognize when you stand up, it will cost you, you know. And I think you mentioned earlier about kind of having a headache and different things like that. And I go, oh yeah, physically, I've seen it cost clients. Like, they literally have to start taking naps. They're going to bed earlier. They're getting headaches. They're getting carpal tunnel. It's showing up in their bodies.
I'll show you. I have my Excedrin right here. It's manifesting. Yes.
It's because you're trying to take back your sense of presence, your sense of self, your sense of voice. And what you're grappling with is, oh my goodness, I'm really not respected, and this hurts.
Right.
And I think that's what I always try to help people honor. And then I want to say, don't worry, you don't have to keep doing that, because clearly you're playing by different rules. You're trying to commit to a grace space, and they're still either committing to a shame space, stuck in a shame space, doesn't know any other options other than shame. I don't know. And I don't even want to judge that. I just want to say, you just get to go create your grace space, and you get to recognize probably how long you've lived in a shame space or a shame-based relationship that wasn't respecting where you were coming from. And as you start grappling with that, you will feel you'll feel the cost of it. Everything from the physical exhaustion to the emotional exhaustion to the spiritual exhaustion. And this is where I just gently like to step in and say, be very kind to yourself. Don't keep trying something that's not working. I like to liken it to this. It's like sitting down to a game and you keep trying to play by one rule, and they're just keep flipping over the game board and stealing, like game of Monopoly. They just get to steal the houses and the hotels and the money wherever they want to. And you keep trying to buy it. You keep trying to earn it. It's crazy making. And I think the thing that you have to really grapple with is the deep sense of grief that, oh my goodness, they never wanted to play with me in a fair way. And they're mad because I'm starting to call them out on the rules. And how long have I been doing this? I mean, that's a whole nother level of kind of a grieving process. And you have to go through that in order to start doing a 180 and start creating and attracting the relationships and the conversations, whether they're professional or personal. And you're calling them out to join you in a grace space. And if they can't, you're able to start stepping back or turning around or going elsewhere.
That's so good. And it's hard because I'm afraid to stand up for myself, and I don't trust myself to say, I don't want to say to not say the right things, but like I told you before, I am a fight or flight. I'm a hide in the corner and don't bug me. So I'm afraid that I'm not going to stand up for myself. And I'm afraid of the argument that is going to come up and all the issues that are going to bubble to the surface. So that's hard too, is being afraid of change and afraid of the consequences. I was reading my Bible last night and it says it's easy to start a fight, but it's hard to end one.
Yes. Yeah. Proverbs is awesome that way. And I think you get to recognize the spaces that you've come from and lived in and participated in and probably even been subjected to. once you start recognizing that, that's where I think the real healing begins to happen. Then you give yourself this permission. And as we've talked about, this idea of true beliefs and false beliefs, and that's on my other podcasts, and it's coming out in my book. So you can read that in my book about true beliefs and false beliefs. But you begin to create a whole new belief system. And it's as simple as this. If you were subjected to a lot of shame-based systems or thinking or shame-based spaces, a false belief really started growing in you, and maybe from a young age, is I don't matter and I don't count. Even worse, I deserve to be disrespected, and I deserve to be kind of kicked around, and I deserve to be demeaned. You know, that's some of these extreme false beliefs that some of us are living with and growing up with. And so part of the healing is getting rid of those false beliefs and saying, wow, okay, that hurt, and it's probably hurt for years now. And now I get to recognize, you know what? I get to create a new true belief. And this is where I get to join people and say, you get to create a true belief, which is you get to be respected. You get to be respectful and be respected. You get to join grace spaces, and you get to create grace spaces. And you get to hold that standard, and you get to be selective on who is joining you and who is not. And that's a whole brand new thought, especially if you've lived in too many shame spaces or shame-based relationships, or you've grown up with these senses of false beliefs to say, yeah, I don't even deserve to have a grace space. In fact, what is that even? And I think that's why I've worked so hard to define it. I'm realizing many of my clients are saying, what? I'm allowed to have that? I don't just get to and I go, no, you don't have to be subjected to that. You get to not only live in these grace spaces, but you get to cultivate them, you get to participate in them, and you also get to protect and defend your grace space.
Yeah. I think we confuse grace with being a doormat. So I had a conflict with one of my family members this week, and as I was standing up for myself, and I'm like, I don't have to be a doormat anymore. That's what I'm saying, is I don't have to put up with this. And so in their mind, grace is just laying down and taking it, but that's not what grace is. Grace is doing the right thing for yourself and for the other person. It doesn't have to be being a wimpy doormat.
Oh, so well said. It's actually a power stance and a place of strength. You know, I've told people many times, you can say no with a smile on your face and turn around and skip off. Yeah. Oftentimes when we say no, we're angry. We're really angry that we can't control them, and we're mad that they're not giving us what we want. That's another form of control. So I think as we go, wow, I've tried everything possible, and this is really sad, but there's nothing else I could do. I've got to be able to just say, no, this isn't working for me. How people respond to your boundaries or your no's gives you a huge indication of their commitment to shame space or grace space.
And we've talked about, like, coaching is moving forward. And so I want to show grace as I move forward, but I also want to bring up the shameful events and heal and move on. Do I bring it up with people to heal, or do I just leave it where it is? And if I do confront someone, how do I do that with grace? I don't want to shame them, but I do want resolution.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this is hard because it's going to require vulnerability. But the ideal way to bring up something that has hurt you is to say, hey, this hurt me, and this is what I felt. I felt shamed. I felt dismissed. I felt disrespected. So you're able to get in touch with your kind of your emotions around it. A healthy relationship will go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That sounds horrific. I did not know that was happening, and that was not my intent, although I understand that was the actions that happened. So please let me own that. Let me make it right with you. That's a healthy response. An unhealthy response, you say, I feel shamed. I feel disrespected. Right. What happens? Well, I don't care, or you deserve that, or let me explain to you why I had the right to do that. That needs to be your line in the sand. That needs to be your big fat megaphone, your big fat flag that says this relationship is not a trusting relationship. You need to take your little continuum and move it all the way back down to 1 or 2 and recognize that you probably gave them too much power or presence in your life. And so you were trying to build trust with someone who's not interested in building trust with you.
Right.
They're interested in keeping you in a shame space. That's very hard to recognize, especially if it's someone you deeply love and care for. And I'm not saying there's an easy answer to it. I just want to say you got to see what you're dealing with, because then when you see what you're dealing with, you can actually come up with a solution that works for you, instead of keep trying to play a game that's not working. You know, keep trying to play a game by rules that you guys say you're going to do, but only one of you is doing it.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said power, because when I was in bed for 2 days with the migraine, I'm like, why am I giving them so much power over my physical and mental health? Because I shouldn't let that influence what's in my four walls with my husband and my kids. Now they're suffering.
Right.
And that's what was ticking me off, is I'm letting it control me so bad that now it's affecting my kids who are innocent. And I don't want my kids to have the cycle that I had. And so how can I teach them to be healthy and not let these outside opinions and influences get to their core like this?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm always about doing it as the kindest way possible. And when I say that, I usually need kind of like a buddy or a guide with me. And I like to hire professionals because it keeps a nice little safe boundary there. So a coach or someone like this, or a counselor or therapist, anyone that just allows me to have a grace space that validates me. Because what am I feeling? I'm feeling invalidated, disrespected, and powerless.
Right.
So I can sit there and keep trying to figure that out myself. And it's possible you can get there. But what I want to say is, you're going to want to try and probably do it a kinder way. See if you can find someone that will come alongside you and say, yeah, that really hurt, didn't it? Yeah, that's really unfair, isn't it? Okay, now what are we going to do about it? Because you don't have to subject yourself to it anymore. And I think that's what I have the honor and privilege of doing with so many people. You know, I get to say, oh, I'm so sorry. That sounds horrific. And that sounds painful. And that sounds really sad. And I can hear them go, yes. It's like somebody finally hears me. I knew I was right. And I go, you are right. You were right. And now we get to do something about it. And we get to do it in the most, you get to do it modeling grace, ironically, which could be a very simple boundary, just saying, this is no longer working for me. I'm not feeling heard in this relationship, or I'm not feeling like you value what I feel. Therefore, I need to step away. Are they going to be angry? Yeah, but are they already angry with you? You know what I mean? You're already disappointed. Then you might as well go do it, disappointment for good. So I think learning how to grapple with that is a challenge, especially if it's a lot of, I'll be honest, family, you know, because family is that deep places of when we were younger, anything else. So it hits those deeper places. Right. So I always encourage people, get a buddy, get a helper, because you can get through it faster, and you can get through it in a kinder way instead of trying to suffer by yourself.
And so do you recommend, so when I was thinking about this, and like part 2 of my conversation with this person, should I write out my feelings? Like, because I did say things I shouldn't, and I did react and not respond. I said some pretty hard things that I shouldn't have. Is it better to have an outline to say, like, okay, this, so I can trust myself to say the right things, and I won't have the fear, because I'll come to the, I don't want to say argument, but the argument, let's call it what it is. I don't want to come to the table and not have my points. I want to be well thought out. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I'm always going to go after I'm not going to say whether it's good or a bad idea, because I don't know for sure, to be honest, but I want to go after your heart, which is you get to honor where you're at. I'm going to remind you, if you don't feel heard, respected, or powerful, or even shamed, you know, you're feeling these emotions. Right. To try and get to the end and resolve it and fix it, I still hear, I hear a false belief, honestly, that says I have to fix this and I have to do it the right way. And I want to help. Yeah, I want to help release you from that and say, you didn't create the mess. You do not have to fix it. You were setting down a boundary, and guess what? Boundaryless people hate boundaries. Wow. So I think that's the thing I want to help release you from. It's not yours to fix. You didn't create the whole problem. You know, you get to sit in it and not squirm and feel uncomfortable, but you get to sit in it with a true belief that says, I am enough. I did the best I can. I'm not being heard. I get to withdraw until I heal. Okay. Then you get to decide whether a letter or whether a conversation is helpful. But in the heat of the moment, I still don't hear you caring for your heart that got really damaged, and it might have gotten damaged for too many years and too many conversations. So it's this beautiful permission slip that you're giving yourself that says, I get to sit in this for as long as I need to, and I don't have to put the pressure on myself to fix a problem that I can't fix. I don't have to put the pressure on myself to have a conversation that I'm not ready to have. I don't have to put the pressure on myself to step into something or a relationship that's not willing to respect me or hear me. I get to just rest, care for myself, care for my tattered heart and my soul, and start living in the space that says, I'm enough. I'm okay. This is not mine to fix. This hurts, but I get to find healing, and I get to lean into the relationships around me that start filling me back up. Then I will know what to do. You see the difference?
So good. Yes.
Yeah.
That's so good, because it feels like we have to fix it right away on their schedule, on their terms.
And that was part of the message.
Yeah.
You put down a boundary. So basically go back to this playing the game of Monopoly together.
Right.
You've been trying to play the game, and they start stealing stuff, and they're not playing by the rules. They flip over the board. Well, guess what? You flipped over the board. You're done with this.
Right.
Right?
Totally.
But what happens is you're starting to feel guilty because you flipped over the board. Was flipping over the board wrong? I want to say not necessarily. You hit your limit, and you're like, I'm done. Now, if they're going to keep pointing at you going, you flipped over the board, and you're like, this is crazy making. You've been flipping over the board for years. See, what's happening is they're starting to play into your guilt and your shame, and they're trying to hook you back in. And so you're still playing by the old rule that says you're allowed to flip over the board, but I'm not. I have to play by rules, but you get to change the rules. Wow. So you're already moving into this false belief that says, I don't count, and only you count, and it's uncomfortable because it's my fault.
Wow.
All right, what's hitting you?
Truth. Like, I didn't realize, it's a game, and I have to play by their rules, and I've played by their rules this whole time, and then now I'm like, wait a minute, and I flip the board, and then now they bring out a timer, and there's no timer in Monopoly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's truth. Like, the truth is hitting me because I haven't seen it. And so thank you for being my buddy.
I'm your buddy. I'm your your guide. I'm your coach. I'm your buddy.
Yes. Yeah, that's so good. So as we conclude this series, what are some takeaways that you want our audience and me to think about? What should we learn and live out every day? What do you want us to take away from Grace Space?
I think that you're always 50% of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
You're not over 50%. You're not under 50%. I think that is a really concrete way to help you honor yourself and honor what grace gets to be in a relationship. It gets to be this space that says, I truly care what you feel and think, and I want to extend grace to you. But I truly want you to extend the same grace to me. And I think as you learn to evaluate how you are receiving grace and how you're offering grace, I think that's what makes us a better human and better people. And I think as I age and I'm moving into the second half of my life here, I can't help but say, I don't want to keep focusing on what hasn't happened to me. I want to focus on what I get to offer.
Yeah.
And as I start offering that, I also get to continuously evaluate. I'm not going to go in naive anymore, but I get to evaluate, are they returning the commitment to Grace Space? Are they willing to step into this with me? And of course, it's at all different levels. With my husband of 27 years of marriage, it's the deepest level possibly between any humans. So we're going to be at that level 10 in our trust level. And when it starts dipping, I mean, I stop everything and say, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What are we not doing well? What have we outgrown? How do we continuously create that grace space to invite our kids into it and invite other people into it? And out of that core, everything starts flowing. How I do relationships with friends, how I do relationships with clients, everything has to come from a core of who I am And right now, the deepest relationship I have is with someone like my husband. And then I have a couple more on the outside of that, and then who I choose to work with. And all of that is very highly selective for me and how I want to offer it, and really how I want to put boundaries down. Even if I'm working with a client, I'll say, wow, they are so good at a grace space. I am all in.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel our trust level going up higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
If they want to withhold and become defensive or protective or moving out of fear, I can feel myself pulling back, not out of a sense of unhealth, but really out of a sense of, I really want to respect the relationship. I want to see things for where it's at, and I want to meet them where they're at, but I also need them to value where I'm at. And so I think as we wrap up this idea of grace space, I want to say, you can each carry it around with you. You can be about cultivating it, and you can empower every relationship to participate in it with you. You never have to be a victim to other people.
That's amazing. That's so incredible. And I've loved every second of this series. So thank you for creating this, thinking it through, and equipping us with the tools to show grace space and to make it a better world.
Yeah.
Even if it's just our world.
Thank you for joining me in Grace Space, Christina.
Thank you. And join us next time when we address the next topic, managing grief during the holidays.
Yes.
Ooh, this is going to be a good one.
Yes. I hope it's not too depressing, but it's definitely an issue that's coming up over and over. And I guess I want to honor it.
Yeah, it needs to be talked about. It's hard,
Yes.
but it needs to be talked about. So let's bring it to the forefront. Please subscribe to the Heather Penny podcast. And for questions, comments, and resources, please visit heatherpenny.com. Remember, to live your best life, you have to live intentionally. Have a great day, and we can't wait for you to join us next week. Bye, Heather.
Bye, Christina. Bye, all. Thanks for listening.